Today I would like to talk about Rui Rio and how he has become one of the most ridiculous and irritating characters in Portuguese politics. Rui Rio is the current leader of the Social Democrats, a center-left party that, with the leadership of Rui Rio, is shifting towards the left more and more. And this is quite worrisome because the center in Portugal is dying. In the last elections, CDS, a center party that was quite tiny then, became even tinier. And I don't think they will live for much longer. They will be reduced to practically nothing in the next elections. So the center was essentially occupied by the Social Democrats. But with Rui Rio and their shift towards the left and essentially becoming the Socialist Party version 2.0, the center will eventually be destroyed completely in Portugal. It will no longer exist. And initially, Rui Rio was even trying to cover it up. They were always, and when I say they, the Social Democrats, with the instructions of their leader Rui Rio, were always siding with the government. But they were still trying to cover it up. They were saying, no, we are just doing the best for the country. That's what we're doing. It's not about supporting the socialist government. It's about supporting the best measures for the country. This was a lie because many of the proposals, one of them, for example, was to lower taxes in our electricity bill. And the Social Democrats had a proposal like this, while the socialist government wanted to keep all taxes as high as they are now. And the Social Democrats had the opportunity to vote to pass a proposal from a different party to lower the taxes in electricity, and they chose not to, essentially doing exactly what the government wanted. So even though they claimed that they were trying to do the best for the country, they were actually siding with the socialist government. And this was before the pandemic. During the pandemic, Rui Rio is not even trying to hide it. He is clearly siding with the government and saying it as well. So one of the most ridiculous comments that he made was essentially claiming that whoever criticizes the government in a time like this, in a time of pandemic, is not patriotic. Even though the government is doing their best to make the lives of the Portuguese people the worst that they can be, Rui Rio believes that the government should not be criticized, because if you do criticize it, then you are not patriotic. This is such an inflammatory comment and so ridiculous to say that only a leftist could say it, and that's exactly what Rui Rio is. He is a leftist. However, Rui Rio was not satisfied. He wanted to continue saying the most ridiculous and absurd things that only leftists can say. So he continued by saying that in Parliament, the Social Democrats will only care about the proposals of the government. The Social Democrats will immediately reject the proposals from other parties without even reading them, because they only care about the proposals of the government. So it's no longer just supporting the socialists in everything they do, it's actually destroying the democratic process in Portugal, because in Parliament, the democratic process is parties present their proposals, they go up to vote, and those that are accepted by the majority are passed, those that are rejected by the majority are rejected. But Rui Rio doesn't care about any of that. He just cares about the proposals of the government. Everything else will be rejected by the Social Democrats. And this reached a crescendo when even the far left in Spain praised Rui Rio for the way that he does opposition, which essentially is none. He does no opposition. And so even the far left in Spain praised the leader of a center-left party in Portugal. That's how insane and how ridiculous and irritating Rui Rio has become. He is praised by the far left in another country. I mean, I have never seen this before, and if you have similar examples, please post them in the comment section, because I would be very curious to know. I never saw this before, but I mean, Portugal is the best example of what not to do in your country. So yet again, we have an opposition leader doing exactly what an opposition leader should not do. But still, Rui Rio was not happy. He wanted to continue saying the most absurd things, and he said that banks should not have profits during the pandemic because that would be unfair for the Portuguese taxpayer. And this comment does have a context. Essentially, in the past few years, banks have been going bankrupt due to lots of crimes being committed, because in Portugal management is horrible and the justice system doesn't work because it's controlled by the socialists, and so no one gets arrested for these types of crimes because the socialists themselves are usually part of these crimes. And so lots of banks went bankrupt and the state was called to bail them out. And actually, the last one to be nationalized was done under the control of the socialists when the socialists were in government about 12 years ago. So this comment from Rui Rio does have a context, but it makes no sense because during the pandemic, any company, and banks are companies, they need to have profits, because if they don't, they will fire people, and that will make the situation for those people specifically and for the country in general much worse. So saying this is completely absurd, and only a leftist would say it, and that's exactly what Rui Rio is. So I believe you already have an idea of who and what Rui Rio is. But Rui Rio was still not happy, and recently he made a proposal, which again is exactly what the socialists want. And this pertains to the amount of times that the Prime Minister has to go to Parliament. In Portugal, every 15 days, so twice a month, the Prime Minister has to go to Parliament and be questioned by the other parties about the policies that he and his government have been implementing. And those are the only times that the Prime Minister can be scrutinized by the other parties in Parliament. But what does Rui Rio want? He wants to reduce the amount of times that the Prime Minister goes to Parliament, which incidentally is exactly what the socialists want as well. Just incidentally, of course. Now, there's no way that the Social Democrats are again doing the bidding of the Socialist Party. No. It's just a coincidence. And not only that, they actually want to reduce the amount of sessions in Parliament. And they claim that it's to improve the debate and so on, but it's just fluff talk. Because as far as I'm concerned, Rui Rio wants to do this because when he goes to Parliament, he actually has to look like he is opposing the government. And if he reduces the amount of times that he goes to Parliament, then he no longer needs to fake that he is opposing the government. So with all this, I believe you already see who and what Rui Rio is and what he is doing to the Social Democrats. He is destroying this party, and the socialists are loving it, because no one could have ever requested anything better for the socialists than having the opposition leader be Rui Rio. Rui Rio is like a blessing to the socialists. And of course that's very bad for Portugal, but again, Portugal is a dictatorship disguised as a democracy. And so obviously they'd love to praise people like Rui Rio, because they do exactly what the left and the far left want. Anyway, I hope you like this, and I'll see you next time.